In the realm of unresolved mysteries haunting communities, the disappearance of 3-year-old William Tyrrell is a poignant enigma. In September of 2014, a picturesque town in New South Wales, Australia, became the backdrop for a tragedy that shook the nation. On the 11th of September 2014, young William Tyrrell, aged 3, set out on a 4-hour journey from Sydney's North Shore district, accompanied by his 5-year-old sister and his foster parents, a wealthy and educated couple who lived in a $4 million Australian dollar home. Their destination was the residence of his foster grandmother in Kendall, a location where his grandmother's house, situated on Benaroon Drive, faces a bush road leading to the Kendall State Forest. This tranquil abode lies about 22 miles south of Port Macquarie. It was reported by several news outlets that William was far from a typical 3-year-old and had a number of chronic health conditions. This included hearing problems, speech issues, and motor problems. He often fell over, which resulted in injury, and often had a cough or a cold. He attended daycare several times a week, where many of these problems were noted. This also included the fact that he had played alone much of the time and appeared unhappy. He was a child who had recently been taken from the family home and placed into foster care, a huge adjustment for any child, but especially one with developmental issues. The following morning on September 12th, between 10 and 10:25 a.m, Tyrrell and his sister engaged in a game of hide-and-seek in both the front and backyards of their foster grandmother's Benaroon Drive home. Meanwhile, his foster mother and foster grandmother observed the playful activities from outside, snapping some photographs of both William and his sister, drawing with crayons on the balcony, William dressed in a Spider-Man costume. At this point, his foster mother decided to step indoors to prepare a cup of tea. However, concern arose when, after a span of 5 minutes, she realised she hadn't heard William. Consequently, she initiated a thorough search within the yard, house, and surrounding woodland. Simultaneously, Tyrrell's foster father returned from a business errand in Lakewood, immediately joining the effort by scouring the street and knocking on neighbouring doors to ask if anyone had seen William. At 10:57, Tyrrell's foster mother contacted 000 emergency services to report his disappearance. The New South Wales police force responded promptly, arriving at the scene by approximately 11:06 a.m. The last vivid recollection his foster mother had was of William playfully imitating a tiger's roar as he sprinted towards the side of the home, dressed in his Spider-Man attire. Suddenly, a hush fell, and he vanished. Despite her earnest efforts to locate him, his foster mother's search proved futile. Following William's disappearance, a massive operation unfolded, with hundreds of police officers, state emergency service, and rural fire service members, as well as community volunteers, tirelessly conducting day and night searches for the 3-year-old boy. Specialised police units, including the sex crime squad from Strike Force, were mobilised in the search. The search efforts were intensified shortly afterwards with the deployment of motorcycles and helicopters to search the ground and air for any sign of the missing toddler, who at this point, according to authorities, possibly wandered off into the woods and got lost or was abducted. 200 dedicated volunteers worked tirelessly overnight, scouring the rugged terrain surrounding the Kendall home, while police divers meticulously searched waterways and dams. Every house in the estate encompassing Benaroon Drive underwent repeated searches by the police for any clues as to William's whereabouts. Although detection dogs were brought in and managed to pick up little William's scent, their success was limited to the confines of the backyard, which was disheartening for the search teams. The creation of Strike Force Roseanne on September 16th marked a pivotal development comprising adept investigators from the State Crime Command with specialised experience in handling the perplexing disappearances of young children. This 14-squad unit played a crucial role in providing support to the police, emergency services personnel, and community members engaged in the extensive search efforts. Despite their dedicated work, after a span of 5 days, the police reached a dead end in their search for William, having recovered no clues as to his whereabouts or anything which could indicate what had happened to him. Authorities were now steering towards the idea that William had been victim of an abduction. Subsequent to the initial phase of the investigation, the police turned their attention towards identifying the drivers of 2 cars observed parked on the dead-end road on the morning Tyrrell went missing, both of which had been reportedly observed by William's foster mother. These vehicles, described as a white station wagon and an older-style grey sedan, were situated between 2 driveways. Notably, their driver's side windows were down, and they were unfamiliar in that Kendall neighbourhood, where residents typically knew one another and were friendly. What is interesting to note here is that neither of these vehicles were seen in the neighbourhood thereafter the foster mother's sighting, which raised suspicions with the police. The sightings of these vehicles were seen at 9 a.m. and 10:30 a.m. respectively, with the grey sedan being sighted earlier in the day when William and his sister were riding their bikes in the driveway. The white station wagon was observed around the time William disappeared and reportedly was seen speeding down another street close by shortly thereafter. Interestingly, as not to compromise the integrity of their investigation, information about these 2 vehicles were not released to the public until a year later. During the very early stages of the investigation, William's family were ruled out of having been involved in his disappearance and were of the opinion that he had been kidnapped by an opportunistic stranger who may have ties to a paedophile ring. Around 20 people living in the Kendall area who were previous sex offenders were extensively questioned, including a man who went on to sue the state over false allegations of previous sexual offences and was subsequently awarded substantial damages. However, all were eventually ruled out in this case of any involvement. 2 persons of interest arose when it was alleged that 2 child sex offenders met near Benaroon Drive on the day Tyrrell vanished. Both men apparently owned vehicles similar to the ones cited by William's foster mother. The men were both questioned by the police, but denied meeting and even being friends for that matter. One of the men came home drunk that afternoon, though he claimed he had been searching the bush for metal scraps. In the 2 years following Tyrrell's disappearance, the investigation team received over 1,000 reported sightings from vigilant individuals from across the state and beyond, the total calls from members of the public to Australian Crime Stoppers being 2,800 since the beginning of the investigation. Among these reports was a photograph capturing a man and a young boy in Queensland, with the latter bearing a striking resemblance to William Tyrrell. However, within 24 hours, another call clarified that the boy in question was not him. Early in 2015, 2 passengers and a member of a flight crew en route to New Zealand believed that they spotted William on board, with the police promptly meeting the aircraft upon landing. However, this lead was also proved to be fruitless, as the boy was not the missing toddler. Another photograph, which was sent to investigators, depicted a young boy and a woman at a McDonald's restaurant in central Queensland. The boy, once again, shared similarities with Tyrrell, and the accompanying woman resembled his foster grandmother. Subsequent police investigations confirmed that neither the woman nor the boy were connected to the case. Once again, the investigation hit a dead end. Over the course of the investigation, over 1,000 people were questioned, and over 690 persons of interest were interviewed, unfortunately with no new leads being established. As time progressed, authorities became less convinced that William had been abducted, and following new lines of inquiry, looked into the possibility that the boy met with some kind of foul play and closer to home. With time came controversy over William's parents, biological and foster, and the fact his biological parents could not be named or identified in the media for legal reasons. Because of this, William's parents could not appeal to the public for information regarding their son's disappearance, only being able to do so anonymously, an action which was criticised by many, as this could have prevented critical information from coming to the fore for investigators. Due to the fact that he was in the foster care system and he disappeared under the care of his foster parents, it was declared by the Supreme Court that William's disappearance was one of legitimate public interest. The New South Wales government, following backlash, released a statement which reiterated the fact that their, quote, key priority is to always act in the interests of the safety and well-being of children and not in any way to jeopardise ongoing police investigations. It should be noted that William's biological parents were quickly ruled out of having any involvement in his disappearance after receipts showed that they were shopping in Blacktown at the time. The circumstances surrounding their son being placed in foster care isn't exactly clear. However, his mother and father were long-term unemployed. His mother struggled with substance abuse, both experienced incidents involving domestic violence, and his mother often ran into issues with law enforcement, this resulting in custody being lost. Both of their children ended up in the same foster home, and they hoped that their foster family could offer their children everything they ever dreamt of. Despite being in foster care, William's biological parents still had visitation rights, though according to his foster family, this often confused him. At the time he vanished, however, the foster parents were looking to adopt William, despite the fact that his foster mother claimed William would often act out, especially with her often biting her and hitting her. She blamed his, quote, erratic behaviour on his biological parents. On June 12, 2018, authorities disclosed their plans to initiate an extensive forensic search spanning 3 to 4 weeks in the bushland encompassing Kendall and the Benaroon Drive home. The operation, led by search specialists from the Public Order and Riot Squad, aimed to cover substantial ground in order to recover any potential evidence. Moving forward to November 15, 2021, the New South Wales Police declared a renewed search for Tyrrell's remains in 3 regions surrounding the town. This initiative was prompted by new evidence that had come to light, prompting authorities to approach the search with the assumption that they would be focusing on locating his remains, rather than finding him alive. During the 2021 inquest, a woman who was identified as Tanya told the court that 2 brothers she babysat for told her that they had been threatened by a local man that they had seen burying a suitcase, which this male individual told them contained the body of William Tyrrell. This, along with other evidence which came to light, heightened suspicions that William was no longer alive. In April of 2022, his foster mother, whose identity is protected by state law, was charged with giving false and/or misleading information to the New South Wales Crimes Commission hearing regarding an incident in which she denied hitting another child with a wooden spoon, but she was found not guilty that November. However, significant developments emerged in 2023, 9 years after William's disappearance. In June, police told the public that despite various searches over the years and the use of forensics, police could not ascertain exactly what fate befell William Tyrrell. However, on June 27th, police recommended charges against William's foster mother for perverting the course of justice and interfering with a corpse. This was due to new evidence coming to light, which indicated that William possibly fell, from perhaps a blackbutt tree or the first floor balcony of the Benaroon Drive residence, and in response his foster mother may have concealed his accidental death and subsequently disposed of his body. It was also suggested that perhaps he was hit by his foster father's car when he returned home, but there was zero evidence to substantiate this particular idea. The main conclusion, however, is that the cover-up may have been to prevent William's sister being taken away from the family by social services. It should be noted that Tyrrell's foster mother in 2021 pleaded guilty to 2 counts of assaulting another foster child previously in their care, which was notably not William. His foster mother, known in newspaper articles as S.D.D., was grilled by police at Parramatta Police Station. During the interview, she gave conflicting accounts regarding the events of that fateful day. Sydney detectives suggested that she and the foster grandmother, who is now deceased, somehow covered up a tragic accident. The previously mentioned sighting of the 2 cars on the street seen shortly prior to William's disappearance were not witnessed by anyone else, according to police, and a number of deleted text messages were noted from her to William's foster father, known as JS, including completely innocent, everyday texts. The timeline of events contradicted what neighbours told authorities. However, the foster father himself was ruled out as a suspect in this case, having been away from business and having arrived home at 10:33, as written in a text 3 minutes prior that he was almost home. This being one of the texts which had been mysteriously deleted by William's foster mother. According to her, it wasn't unusual for her to delete, quote, unimportant text messages. Police were sceptical of S.D.'s timeline of events, as the final photo she took of her foster son in his Spider-Man suit was at 9:37 a.m, but he wasn't reported missing until over an hour later. She told police that she started searching for him right away, but neighbours didn't see anyone out looking until after the foster father had returned home at 10:30 a.m. During her interview, she also tried to lay suspicion on her neighbours, calling one out as being, quote, odd, and said her mother also felt the same. This neighbour was initially seen as a suspect due to these comments, however was later exonerated. At some point during the morning William disappeared, according to police, S.D. drove her mother's car down to Battar Creek Road, 4 kilometres away from Benaroon Drive, which became a huge search site for police in 2021. It was believed that S.D. possibly buried William's remains in that area. As of January 2024, the New South Wales Director of Public Prosecutions is anticipated to provide guidance on the feasibility of pressing charges against the foster mother, who to this day maintains she had nothing to do with William's disappearance. The question is whether there is enough evidence to press charges against her or anyone else who may have been involved, and it seems only time will tell. The inquest will resume in the coming days. There is currently a $1 million Australian reward for information leading to William's whereabouts, which was initially posted on September 12, 2016, 2 years after he disappeared. This reward will be granted on the condition that the guilty party or parties are arrested and convicted, and on the condition that William's remains are recovered. This reward is the highest offered by the state of New South Wales for a missing person in its history. If by some miracle William is still alive today in 2024, he would be turning 13 years old. Those with any information regarding the disappearance of William Tyrrell are urged to contact Australian Crime Stoppers on 1-800-333-000.